The Catholic Church puts a corpse on trial. The year is 897. You're milling about after Sunday Mass, chatting with your neighbors. The usual topics are making the rounds. How is Larry getting so much milk from his cows? What exactly is that rash on Ulf's chin? And for the love of all that is holy, what is Eadburga wearing? Then Eadmund strolls up, brimming with excitement, and drops the juiciest piece of gossip you've ever heard. There's going to be a trial. Not just any trial, though. The defendant, none other than the Pope himself. The Pope? Everyone gasps in shock, but then the confusion sets in as Eadmund explains, no, not this Pope, the last Pope, you know, the one who's been dead for 8 months. Welcome to Brain Waffles. Today we're diving into one of the strangest events in history, the Cadaver Synod, or the time the Catholic Church put a corpse on trial. Buckle up, this one's a wild ride. Before we dive into the infamous trial, let's talk about the star of this bizarre show, Pope Formosus. Born in 816, Formosus was a highly respected cleric who rose through the ranks of the Church thanks to his intelligence, charisma, and administrative skill. Before becoming Pope, he served as the Bishop of Porto, just outside of Rome. Formosus had a knack for diplomacy, so much so that Pope Nicholas II sent him on high-stakes missions, including trying to convert the Bulgarian king to Christianity. Sounds like a saint, right? Well, Formosus had a bit of a rebellious streak. Back in 872, he got tangled in some political drama when he backed the wrong candidate for pope. Because if there's one thing the medieval Catholic Church loved more than piety, it was political infighting. Formosus ended up excommunicated for a while, but he eventually reconciled with the Church and in 891 was elected pope. As pope, Formosus had the unenviable task of navigating the messy politics of the Carolingian Empire. Italy was a hotbed of power struggles, and Formosus made enemies, particularly with a guy named Stephen VI. Stephen wasn't a fan of Formosus's political maneuvers, particularly his support of Arnulf of Carinthia, a Frankish king, over the Italian candidate Lambert of Spoleto. Stephen backed Lambert, and the bad blood began brewing. Formosus didn't live to see how much Stephen hated him. He died in 896 of what most historians believe were natural causes, though some suspect foul play. But for Stephen, Formosus being dead wasn't enough. He wanted revenge, posthumous, petty revenge. Now let's get to the main event, the Cadaver Synod. In January of 897, Pope Stephen VI ordered that Formosus's decomposing corpse be dug up from its resting place. The body was exhumed, dressed in papal robes and propped up on a throne in St. Peter's Basilica. This wasn't just a private church matter, it was a full-blown public spectacle. Bishops, clergy, and probably a fair number of curious onlookers crowded the basilica, eager to witness the madness. A deacon was assigned to speak on behalf of Formosus, which meant essentially answering for the corpse. Picture this. A man is standing behind a rotting body, speaking in its defense, as if this was a normal Tuesday in medieval Rome. Stephen VI, however, wasn't playing around. He was enraged, and witnesses described him as shouting at the corpse, calling it a perjurer and a pretender to the papacy. He accused Formosus of violating canon law by serving as bishop in more than one diocese, claiming that his papal election was invalid. These were all technicalities that, frankly, most people didn't care about while Formosus was alive. But Stephen's hatred ran deeper than rules. This was political theater. He was trying to humiliate his rival's legacy and, by extension, strengthen his own authority. Some accounts even suggest that Stephen accused Formosus of plotting to usurp the throne of St. Peter. Imagine standing there watching a man passionately accuse a literal corpse of treason. There's no surviving record of direct quotes from the trial, but 12th-century historian Cardinal Baronius later described the event, saying, "A monstrous and abominable act, surpassing all imagination." Even medieval writers, who had seen their fair share of insanity, were flabbergasted by the sheer absurdity of the trial. In a completely predictable outcome, the corpse was found guilty on all counts. Pope Stephen VI ordered Formosus's papal garments to be torn off, and the 3 fingers he had used for blessings were hacked off as a symbolic punishment. The punishment didn't stop there. Stephen ordered the corpse to be dragged through the streets of Rome and thrown into the Tiber River. This wasn't just about Formosus. It was a message to anyone who dared oppose Stephen or align with his political enemies. But the story doesn't end there. Formosus's body was fished out of the river by a group of loyal monks who reburied it in secret. Rumors began to spread that miracles occurred near his grave, and people started seeing Formosus as a martyr. The Cadaver Synod turned out to be one of the worst PR moves in church history, which is saying something. Stephen VI's actions were so extreme that they caused a public outcry. People were horrified at the desecration of a pope's body and began to question Stephen's sanity. Within a few months, Stephen was deposed by a faction of his enemies. He was thrown in prison, where he was eventually strangled to death. Formosus's body, on the other hand, was reburied with full honors in St. Peter's Basilica, and the church officially annulled the Cadaver Synod, declaring it a shameful episode. The Cadaver Synod remains one of the strangest and most morbid episodes in history, a perfect storm of political drama, petty revenge, and medieval absurdity. It's a reminder that sometimes history really does feel like a dark comedy. Thanks for watching Brain Waffles. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below about which historical oddity we should cover next. Until next time, stay curious and maybe keep your skeletons in the closet where they belong.